Hey, what's going on, Ellie? Happy Friday.
Hey, Joe. Happy Friday to you. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And we're back, right? This is part three, I think, right, of our weekly series focusing on CBD and pain, sleep, and stress. Today we're going to talk about sleep, and we were coming in on Thursdays and moving this to Friday, confused my whole week. I had no idea what day it was, but I'm happy to be here. And I guess we should just start off like we have in the past. We'll just introduce ourselves for the first timers potentially. All right.
Yep.
Guys, my name is Joe LaVacca. I am a physical therapist based out of New York City. I have been working here for the better part of 12 years now. I am also lead educator for Fringe, which is our company here focused on CBD, plant-based medicine, whole person well. I was going to say whole person wealth. That would be great. That's what I could use help on. But whole person wellness. We're really excited to be here. And of course, for the last 3 weeks, I'm also joined today by Dr. Alyson Evans.
That's right. So I am co-CEO and founder of Fringe, and really Fringe is a health and wellness company focused on sort of changing how we're living and how we're learning. And our product line that we do talk a lot about is centered around the CBD industry. And there's so much for healthcare practitioners to learn. So we're just trying every week to bring you guys, a handful of minutes talking about a topic. I would say today that we are talking about the topic that we have had the most interest in when it comes to CBD. And maybe, I don't know, I mean, I think it would be a tie right now as to whether or not most people are using or seeking out compounds from the hemp plant or cannabis plant for sleep or anxiety. But sleep is a massive industry, and sleep problems are actually the industry. And there's not a lot of solutions for people that are really having trouble sleeping. So I think the most important thing that I thought maybe you could start with a brief synopsis on, Joe, is you and I have both done ourselves the favor and disservice of reading the book Why We Sleep. I would say it's not a recommendation to read that book if you're not sleeping, but if you do find yourself sleeping really well, it's a phenomenal book to read. Maybe just start with you kind of briefly summarizing the importance of sleep for really everybody.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and I do call Why We Sleep the scariest book I've ever read. But in terms of the importance of sleep, I think that a lot of us give credit to sleep for maybe even restoring our bodies, which we know that there are two big phases of sleep. We have deep sleep or non-REM sleep, and then we have REM sleep, right? So our deep sleep is very important for our bodies to recover from any sort of physical exertion. It's also, though, how we start to prune and pair neuronal connections from the things that we've learned throughout the day. So if you have been taking a course, I always bring this up when I teach, the biggest thing I tell people to do is go home and sleep, because it will actually help you learn. This is when our bodies sort of cleanse out a lot of let's say, the cellular waste that may be occurring in between these processes, particularly maybe in our brain and our central nervous system. So we know that there's obviously something that's very important, dealing with inflammation and pain. That's what we talked about last week, I think. So sleep could have a regulating role in that, sort of cleaning out cellular waste and debris. It's repairing for our bodies. And then again, most importantly, maybe it prunes and connects a lot of neuronal connections for us. So it's really, really exciting stuff to think about. But then so many people have a hard time with it, and maybe even the thought of it.
Yeah. And so the connection between not sleeping long enough, and not having a regulated circadian rhythm sleep cycle is associated with like a fascinating amount of correlation with disease. Essentially, your lifespan is correlated to your quality of sleep. And so for us, we are often asked, what's the deal with CBD and sleep? I took CBD once, I stayed awake all night. I took CBD once and I was tired all day. People's experiences. If you have questions about the CBD industry, go back and watch our first live live stream we did with Pezzy. We talked about what kind of CBD products you're looking for, safety, regulation, testing, all that sort of thing. For all of these, I give the disclaimer that you need to make sure that you're buying a product that has had the proper safety and quality testing done on it, in order to ensure that you could have a good experience with the product and that it would actually be good for you. But then we are asked, how does CBD help sleep? And I think for me, and I love the way I've heard you explain it too, Joe, with regards to circadian rhythms, but I put it into two categories. There's people who can't fall asleep, and then there's people who can't stay asleep.
Right.
And let's talk about the people that are just not staying asleep and are waking up in the middle of the night. Do you mind giving sort of like your 30,000 foot view on sleep, the endocannabinoid system, circadian rhythms, all that sort of stuff?
Sure, absolutely. And as it relates to people not being able to stay asleep, I think that this is an important concept. I believe what we sort of view the endocannabinoid system as it relates to sleep is sort of like this Zeitberger. That's a word that I learned while I was reading about things this week. So it's a sort of a thing that keeps things on time. So if I look at my watch, I don't see the internal processes of the gears moving and the all of these other sort of technological things that keep my watch telling me time. I just look at the big hand and the little hand or my digital screen, and I have no idea what's going on beneath the surface. So I think the endocannabinoid system is the things that controls the gears and sort of the timing, so you can keep time throughout the day. Now, just like every other living system, we operate on rhythms, right? So we have circadian rhythm, as Ali was mentioning. That's our sort of 24-hour, maybe just a touch more than 24-hour cycle. But we also go through ultradian rhythms, which is a little bit more of like a 90-minute to 2-hour cycle throughout the day. Up to 30% of all cellular processes could just be reliant on circadian rhythms or ultradian rhythms. So we have nothing to do with anything. Just because it's the time of the day, we'll ramp up cellular activity or we'll decrease cellular activity. So I think for the people who can fall asleep but then not stay asleep, their rhythms are off in the sense that it's telling us, hey, well, great, we got this time to sleep. Now it's time to wake up. So I'm going to have these rush of hormones. I'm going to have these rush of neurotransmitters because in my sort of rhythm, it's telling me I've slept enough, but that's obviously incorrect. So that's where we sort of hope or have this idea that understanding more about the endocannabinoid system and CBD, and maybe potentially in the future, cannabis-based medicines in general, how can we sort of use these products to kickstart our rhythm into a more, I don't say normal, but more of a daily cycle that we would be more accustomed to.
Yeah, so we get a lot of reports of people trying the CBD, and then, you know, whether or not you have advanced sleep tracking watches or apps or whatever it may be, we have a lot of people say that they used to be up between 1 and 3 a.m. and they start taking CBD and they notice that their deep sleep hours and their REM sleep hours are the things that they see the improvement with. So what would you say is the sort of clinical correlation there with a lack of deep sleep and a lack of REM sleep? What maybe just like a high level understanding of the importance of cycling into those parts of our sleep cycle and not missing them?
You mean in terms of like having each like phase itself? Right?
Yeah, and just more so the importance, the importance of actually having deep sleep and REM sleep.
Right. Absolutely. So sort of like what we were mentioning before, if I don't have the ability to trim neuronal connection, well, my body is going to be using a lot more energy day to day, right? So deep sleep, especially for my mind and my central nervous system, to be able to trim those connections, get rid of excessive waste. When I now wake up and I'm now using my body in a regular state, I'm more focused on maybe newer connections, newer ideas. And we mentioned that anxiety and sleep are often closely connected. So if I'm trying to break away from an anxious state, I have to actually learn how not to be anxious. I have to learn and formulate new ideas, new coping strategies, and maybe even have new thoughts around my my approach to sleep, because the traditional way that I've been using or approaching sleep has not been working. So sleep is a very interesting topic because it's actually like you're learning or you're teaching your body new behaviors And if I'm not cycling into deep sleep, I can't cut off old connections. And if I'm not cycling into REM sleep, I'm not creating new ones, because REM sleep looks very similar to brain waves like when we're awake. So this idea of dream states, most of our dreams happen in REM sleep. And potentially, I've read a lot of different things about dreaming, but dreaming might also be sort of rehearsals for the things we might encounter or the things that we've been experiencing in our lives. So it actually gives our brains the idea to approach, oh, well, we've been here before. We've actually, been through that scary interaction with our boss, or we've been through the taking the final shot at the NBA finals or something like that, because we've dreamt about it. So now when it happens in reality, it's a little bit less scary, a little bit less intimidating. And then maybe that even links into our conversation next week in terms of stress.
Yeah, for sure. We have definitely have people tell us, they start using CBD and they have a lot more dreams. And I definitely try to make people aware, if you do have some sort of sleep tracker on, looking at your hours of deep sleep and your hours of REM sleep can tell you a lot about, the experience you went through in the evening while you were sleeping, and correlating it sort of how you're feeling in the morning. We just had a question about patients who are worried about becoming dependent on CBD. I do think that it's interesting because generally right now, if you have trouble sleeping, you're medicated. I mean, that's basically the treatment approach for sleep disorders, is that you become medicated. And Joe could share some statistics on sleep medication, but it is not good from a standpoint. It's scary. It's probably the scariest. I don't know opioids, but I don't know. So dependency in the medication world is absolutely, worrisome for all of us. CBD has been tested, shows no signs of withdrawal, no signs of dependency. The safety profile is ridiculous.
Startling.
It's startling because it really is that safe for people to take. So what I can say about dependency is you can let your patients know there's no science or research that supports you becoming dependent on CBD to sleep. CBD is, as Joe described, there to regulate their sleep cycle or your sleep clock genes or your circadian rhythms. It's not the same as taking a melatonin or something that inserts itself into a chemical pathway that's already existing in your body. CBD is there to support your endocannabinoid system, and your endocannabinoid system is what is there to kind of say to you, it's time to go into the state of resting. It's time to prepare for sleep. And so we do get questions about people having trouble falling asleep. And I do think that I think you might have alluded to it a little bit, Joe, already, is you're getting brain chemical rushes at times of the day that you're not supposed to. We're not supposed to be having cortisol spikes at 8 p.m. Right. Cortisol spikes are designed for our body to be like, oh, I'm on alert. I need to be on high alert. I need to perform. I need to fight, so a cortisol dysregulation is something that CBD essentially can have a channel to helping, again, through the endocannabinoid system in our bodies. So dependency is a great question to ask about, and even a better question to answer, because I do think there's not a lot of options for us that are super, super safe and essentially help our bodies just work better. So
right, and I think even the any stuff that I came across with dependency was more connected to high doses of THC, low doses of CBD. And a lot of times the populations that they were studying were already what they would list as heavy users. So, if I was a heavy user of anything and then you took it away from me or gave me less, that's going to sort of impact my behavior, my rhythms, and everything else. But Rachel, great question. Like I said, nothing that I've seen related to CBD and dependency, like Ali spoke about. I think even WHO, the World Health Organization, has a statement on that from 2017. But anything that you might read or come across or what people have heard deals with very high levels of THC and cannabis-based products.
Yeah, there's definitely, this is an interesting topic. Most of the compounds in the hemp plant, a lot of them, not most of them, a lot of them have something that's called biphasic activity, meaning in low doses, they CBD is definitely one of those, talking about its sedative or calming property. CBD in low doses can be mood stabilizing, literally can help people focus, be productive throughout their day. Some people would even describe it as alert. CBD in higher dose sedative, and dosage is not related to body weight. It's not related to age. It's related to the functioning of your endocannabinoid system in your body and how your body responds to a CBD dosage. So for me, a certain milligrams might be very sedative for me. I feel them calming me. I feel myself getting into that sleep mode. And it might be totally different for Joe. So that's really important. THC also has the same activity. So people that are using cannabis recreationally, cannabis or THC in low doses helps with anxiety and sleep. Very low doses. Super high doses causes sleep disorders, anxiety disorders, you know. So we don't have any, we remove all THC. THC is not federally legal, and CBD is federally legal. Hemp is federally legal. Very low doses of THC in hemp. And so we mainly talk about the biggest compound in the hemp plant and the activity that it can have. So
Yeah,
I know that
and
you
I love
take CBD for sleep.
Yep.
Joe? Yeah.
I was going to say, I love that phrase that you wrote, like, and I've actually written this down in my notes I wanted to talk about today. Stability of state, I think, is a really important concept to get across when we're even talking about endocannabinoid system, rhythm, timing of when I'm taking it. And even like you said, most of the time when I've taken CBD, when we were starting out and I was taking it in the morning, I realized, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't really want another cup of coffee. I felt a little bit more alert. Stopping at 1.5 cups, I wouldn't even finish the second cup. Whereas like on days where I wouldn't take it, I'd be going for that second or enjoying the third cup of coffee, right? So I did notice that very quickly, right? Whenever I took CBD in the morning, more alert, a little bit more focused. Now, that's what sort of made me reluctant at night to take it, because I was like, well, if I sort of feel a little bit energized at these 30 milligrams, what's this going to do for me in my sleep? And then what I realized was when I'm winding down at night and throwing it in my tea, well, it didn't make me more alert at that time, right? Because that was sort of me and my signal or my ritual, sort of telling my body it's time for downtime. You know, for me, I'll either read, I'll make some tea. At that time, I'm usually talking to Courtney, my fiance, who lives 2 time zones away. So for me, it's all like my night routine is very, very similar. And then I have all these like compounding factors that trigger my relaxation mode, right? Whether that's connecting with someone, enjoying the tea, putting on my pajamas, a blanket, whatever, right? But there's all these different things that cue me, right? And then same thing in the morning, right? I'm running around, I'm getting either ready for school. It's sort of like go mode. And for me, that was the biggest difference I noticed. When I went to track sleep, though, the thing that I observed was after not doing anything for like 2 or 3 weeks and averaging out my deep sleep score, once I started adding CBD to my night routine, which is where it most commonly sticks now, is I was getting on average 30 to 40 minutes more of deep sleep per night over the course of me tracking it. Right now, I have to go back in and redo that, but this is really important of us as individuals. I think sleep is one of the hardest things for us to rate, right? Because you hit it best when we were in our cannabinoid science course. You were like, I know how I slept last night. I don't know how I slept over the last 30 days. And then, some of these studies are, overnight stimulus, right? I don't know if that's a fair shake, or maybe a 2 or 3 night, stimulus. I wouldn't say if I didn't sleep good for 2 or 3 nights, or I slept really good for 2 or 3 nights, I'm a bad sleeper or I'm a good sleeper. But it's really hard to picture the whole sequence unless you're tracking it.
Yeah, because the importance of sleep is like, I should say to you, how did you sleep last year? How'd you sleep last year? It's like, I don't know, but when we have technology, people are using technology to track sleep. My deep sleep is about doubled when I am using CBD regularly. And I don't notice a ton for me personally with REM sleep. It's just a deep sleep hour.
Yeah, me too.
And you know, and that's just me personally. So here's a really interesting topic. And when I first started knowing that we were going to get into this market and testing all these different CBD products, I had the most inconsistent experience with CBD and sleep. I would take gummies and I'd be wide awake. I would take gummies and I'd like knock myself out. I would take gummies and wake up so groggy. The same experience I had with oil, and it really led us at Fringe down the road to learn about something called water-soluble CBD science, which is what we talk about. And it really comes down to improving the predictability of the experience, the consistency of the experience, and really the value of the experience with a CBD product. So we talk a lot about water-soluble CBD science. So what I can tell you is that CBD is an oil, and it is very poorly absorbed and utilized by our bodies, just like most oils that we would ingest. 6 to 24% of what you ingest is actually available in your bloodstream after you ingest it. The trick is that time to absorption, or the time that it's actually available to do work, can vary greatly on a fasted or unfasted state. So if you are taking a CBD oil product, which is 95% of the industry right now, you should take it on a full stomach, and you should know that it could have its onset or be detectable in your blood anywhere from 30 minutes upwards of 4 hours. That's a really variable onset, especially if you're using it for sleep. And so what I realized is I didn't know any of this when I was taking CBD products at night, and I would take them and they were probably kicking in at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, whoa, you know, what happened there? And so for us in the water soluble space, we get to consistently say CBD is in your blood at 15 minutes. It peaks at an hour. It's out of your blood in 6 hours. Every single time you take it, no matter the food content or fasted or unfasted state. It allows us to put answers to questions like, what is the optimal timing for better sleep? In a water soluble CBD product, the optimal timing would be 30 minutes before bed. But what if you're the person who has trouble falling asleep? Then you have to start to listen. Is it, you know, that at dinner time is really stressful for you, and instead of winding down, your stress levels are flying through the roof? Maybe for you then, taking CBD at dinner time is something that helps reset that state, stabilize that state during the evening, so you can enter into rest mode more effectively. It really does come down, you know, to listening to your body. And I love, you know, talking about that sort of stability of state, or really just, is it matching, you know, the cycle that we're supposed to be in? I mean, when we wake up in the morning, we are supposed to have high levels of endocannabinoids in our body. We're supposed to feel really good when we wake up in the morning, rested, alert, you know, focused, ready to go. And then we have this cycle that we go through the day, and people are just really, really out of balance. A lot of disharmony.
Yeah, that timing too, and talking about stability of state for us with kids, jobs. I think a lot of us, maybe even with kids, when the kids go down, that's sort of like, oh, okay, I have some time now. So I know, like, I'll get tired when Avery goes to sleep, but then I'm like, well, no, I have to be up for another 2-3 hours, right? So if that's the case, then we have to sort of think about chronotypes, and this is stuff we can get into at another time. Societal demands and expectations. A lot of us could be just pushing past our circadian rhythm cues because now I want to stay up with my husband. Now I want to stay up and watch TV. Now I want to read this book. Now I need to do laundry or everything else. Maybe, you know, maybe for those types of people, carrying over, like if I do feel tired, but I have to try to do more, well, maybe it's worth listening, pairing some CBD with that time where you feel relaxed. It can be this sort of kick or Zeitberger to start to get you back onto a more natural rhythm. And not that you have to go to bed every night at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, but give yourself 7, 14, maybe 30 days of doing that, right? The laundry will be there tomorrow, right? Or at least it's always been there for me. No one's ever come overnight and done it for me, unfortunately. But it could just be, again, finding your rhythm and allowing yourself the ability or that space to do so. assisting with the CBD. If that means you go to bed at 9 or 9:30, hey, just welcome it, and then wake up, and maybe you wake up. If you wake up at 5 and go to bed at 9, you have 8 hours of sleep, and you have all that extra time in the morning, right? I think we also often forget about that.
When my related by me not being in the time zone that my body is programmed for. Yeah. We had a question about what brand do we recommend. We obviously work for a CBD company. We educate for them. I own it. So it's, you can go to joinfringe.com. We make water-soluble CBD. So it's very different. It's tasteless. It's odorless. Just goes in your drink, coffee, tea, whatever you want to put it in, but it has that predictability of experience, the consistency of experience, and it's also really, really highly absorbed. So you get quite a high dose of CBD, which for a lot of people that are dysregulated, they respond really well to. Yeah, so to conclude our talk about sleep, I think sometimes I'm asked, well, what do you guys see? And then I'll have 2 or 3 people tell me anxiety, and then I'll go down this road of answering about anxiety. But I think for us at Fringe, and this is something that means a lot to us, is those conversations are never isolated. It's never anxiety, it's never sleep, it's never pain. It's an entire person lacking harmony within their body and how their body's functioning and the experience they're having, and I'm trying to help. Right, Jim? Right.
Perfect. Well, I think we're just probably like pretty much out of time. Yeah. Thank everybody for joining us. As Ali mentioned, definitely check out joinfringe.com. Sign up for our amazing newsletter. We put that out each week. If you want to learn more about any of the things that we've talked about, join us next week as we talk about CBD and mental health or stress. And of course, we have our online course, Cannabinoid Science. That's 6.5 hours, right?
No, it's 10.5 hours because we combined all our courses, and we do talk a lot about all the research on cannabis compounds and sleep, and then we talk about the endocannabinoid system. So it's definitely full of information.
Yeah, so go check that out, and thank you guys again for your questions and for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Yep, we'll see you guys next